Welcome to the Leather Lounge, a weekly show recorded live every Tuesday where we explore the latest innovations in the Bitcoin ecosystem. From DeFi and dApps to digital art, we bring you in-depth conversations with developers, artists, and community leaders who are shaping the future. Whether you're here to learn about cutting-edge projects or to deepen your understanding of blockchain basics and decentralization, Leather is your go-to source for all things Bitcoin. Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. Well, hello and welcome back to the Leather Lounge. I'm your host, Sean Longstreet. My guest today is none other than Muneeb Ali, the founder of Stacks. We'll talk briefly about the Stacks ecosystem, SIP31, and what's next for the leading Bitcoin L2, but we'll also explore Muneeb's interest beyond Bitcoin, along with the principles, habits, and practices that keep him optimized to lead and inspired through years of building. This is also our final episode, and I'm truly grateful to close out this chapter with Muneeb as my guest. So stick around to the end, and I'll just take a little moment to share a few reflections and say a final farewell. For now, let's dive in. Muneeb, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So let me just first get a little vibe check. How are you feeling now that Stacks has shipped major upgrades over the past year? You know, Nakamoto, SBTC, voting for SIP31 now is live. So how are you feeling about the future of Stacks and the various new use cases?
Yeah, I think we're at a great spot. Like I feel, especially as a founder, you really want to love the product itself, right? And I must be honest that the slow speeds before Nakamoto were pretty frustrating for myself as well. Like you want to get the feeling that that feeling of joy almost, that this was amazing, right? Like now when I use this and as a Bitcoiner, when I'm actually using Bitcoin on fast rails, like sometimes I click send, and even by the time I go to the Explorer, the transaction is actually confirmed, right? And that feels like great UX. And even wallets like Leather, like it's just a night and day difference from the old clunky wallets we're used to using on the Bitcoin side. Like Electrum is barely maintained at this point. Sparrow even though I still use those wallets, but they're not something that gives you a feeling of joy, or they feel like like modern great UX, and you can see hundreds of millions of people around the world using it, right? Like the previous Bitcoin stuff felt very niche, right? Like it was almost like Bitcoin was stuck in an old era, and now we're the player. Where Stacks is the place that's actually going to lead and take Bitcoin to a lot of people and make Bitcoin. Same thing with Bitcoin DeFi, right? Like I'm an active user of a lot of these applications that are deployed. And it's amazing. The feeling is great when you're able to take a loan against your BTC and go and use it. And I think that's just amazing.
Yeah. So let me get your thoughts now on SIP31. I'm sure that you've had an ear to the ground and you've seen the development. I think there's been a tremendous community effort to be heard. And I know that there's a lot of people behind the scenes who are listening. So what are your thoughts about the last few weeks to see how the rollout and evolution and adaptation has gone for SIP31?
Yeah, so I think I almost like decided that I'm not gonna try and push this because I wanted it to be more of a community effort or other leaders come in and sort of like do this. But I've been a supporter of it since the beginning, and I helped with various people thinking through it and why it's needed. And at a high level, I think this is the time to swing for the fences, right? Like
Hmm.
we don't want to be like a small project, right? Like we think the stacks could be a top 10 project. Like if anything, there's that sailor saying that there is no second best. I think
Hmm.
there can be a second best asset, which is the largest Bitcoin layer that is actually making Bitcoin productive and making Bitcoin more useful, and it earns you BTC, right? Like I think that type of a future is possible, and I think you need to make a bold move and not only get the right resources to be able to execute, but another big part of SIP31 is that maybe doesn't get enough attention is it's almost like operational efficiency that's going to come with it. Like where, given the new environment we're in terms of regulations and the lessons learned over the past years, I think operational efficiency actually goes a long, long way. So I view SIP31 as almost like a growth round. Like you've proven the technology. We went from 0 to 1, right? Like Nakamoto is here, SPD is here. Anyone can go use the product. We know all the DeFi primitives with all these builders are here. And I think now is the time to put more fuel on the fire, right? So if this was a traditional tech company, once you have proven sort of like product market fit, like $500 million of BTC came in and is deposited, then you go out and grow, right? Like Bitcoin is $2 trillion worth of capital. And I think we should be getting billions and billions of that deployed on stacks and built it as not like the place for Bitcoin DeFi and other applications as well. Like I'm personally very excited about even payments use cases because I think, again, SBDC is like 100x better product than some of the other payment attempts that we've seen, and it has none of the downsides of things like Lightning with channel capacity issues, routing issues, and especially with the self-custodial version and the new upgrades. I think it can be the place of how Bitcoin gets used around the world.
Yeah. Well, last question on Stacks and SIP31. What do you think needs to happen developmental wise over the next 6 to 12 months to really make this the moment where, the tech is here. Now it's time for the traction. What do you think needs to happen over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so I think for SIP31, one of the great things was the community feedback and the process. And I think people coming in and giving feedback that, hey, it's not just about Bitcoin DeFi. There are all these other communities, NFT communities, meme coins, like all these other things. And I think they're all very valid points. And those areas also want resources, right? Like many other ecosystems that have been successful, like Solana and others, like they had the resources to be able to invest and help grow different parts of the ecosystem. I think SIP31 is going to make a huge impact there. But in terms of the next 6 months, I think there is a roadmap, a very comprehensive roadmap. I'm personally the most excited about or most interested in the self-custodial SBDC mint because I think it's a massive unlock. Both on the institutional side, a lot of the institutions, yes, they're deploying capital even right now, but they look at the risk of going over the decentralized crypto signers, and if you take that away, I think that's a huge unlock for getting a lot of capital in. But it's not just institutions, right? This is again the Bitcoin ethos and the Bitcoin core of it. That you want to be in a place where you're running your own node, you're minting in a self-custodial way. You're not dependent on anyone. You can withdraw whenever you want. You're making like the first use case of Bitcoin is actually transfer, right? Like it's a transfer of value. When you can do that transfer of value on fast rails in a self-custodial way, I think that's massive. That's
Yeah.
absolutely massive. And so in the roadmap, obviously I'm excited about other things as well. But personally, I think that's the one thing that I think can be a major unlock. And then if you look at the SIP, a lot of it is actually designed around bootstrapping the ecosystem. So when it comes to DeFi applications, like some DeFi incentives, And that sort of like playbook exists now. Like we've seen many different ecosystems try various sets of incentives. We know what's a bad way of doing it and what's sort of like a good way of doing it that can be sustainable, that can get like good traction. And I think we can just play that book on a much bigger asset now, right? So the only thing missing was resources, and again, being able to execute in an efficient way, which is again a thing that SIP31 actually solves for. So what I expect to see in the next 6 months is a lot of TVL growth, a lot of of these applications actually getting real usage, and high quality integrations as well, right? So if you want to get a tier one bridge, or if you want to get a tier one stablecoin, sometimes these integrations and partnerships, they cost a lot of money. Like, single digit millions is like normal in the industry right now. And Stacks just never had the capital to be able to do this. So a lot of things were happening more organically with low budgets and so on. And I think now with the resources in hand, you would actually see a lot more happen like much faster.
Yeah. You mentioned intentionally being a little bit more hands-off with SIP31. So I wanted to ask you about your leadership style. So how do you balance learning from, like, say, other main crypto leaders in the ecosystem, Vitalik, and what do you see as your unique strengths that you have as a founder?
I think that's a good question. I think one thing I realized about myself is I'm typically a little too early to things, right? Which like it's a weakness in a way, right? Like if you are too early and the market wasn't ready, that's a problem, right? So I have sort of like learned, or I'm maybe still learning, to somehow balance it out with market realities, right? So I can give you examples of like many, like Stacks is an obvious example, right? Like we were so contrarian so early on, like 2017 when it started, we were like, no, everything's going to come to Bitcoin and this is going to happen. And literally so many years later, like I would have expected this to happen in 2021 cycle, but we are actually in 2025, and now people are saying that, oh, Bitcoin dominance is actually going up. Bitcoin is the main asset. So so many other Bitcoin L2s started, and same with some technical designs as well, right? It's like, I think you need to. One of the things I've learned is sometimes I need to pace myself, right? Like even if I have very high conviction that this is where the world is going to, I need to focus more on just the next step. Even if I can see the 10th step, and I think like eventually everything's going to go there, but you need to pace yourself, right? And you need to sort of like walk with the market. A good example of that would be that Bitcoin yield is a very logical next step. So even if I have a very strong conviction of like what a healthy Bitcoin economy might look like, trying to build that right now would be a mistake. But just focusing on what the market is ready for, and if that's the yield part, focus on the yield part, right? Like give the market what it wants right now, and then slowly walk with them towards the eventual vision is I think, a learning that I've had.
Yeah, that's a good example. How about a memory from your childhood? I'd love to know if you could go back and relive one memory from your childhood. What would that be?
I think it's a weird memory, right? Like because it doesn't feel like a very comfortable place, but it was actually like a very happy memory. So in Pakistan, like it would get really hot, right? Like really hot during the summers. So we'll have, obviously we're off from school and we're sitting, and sometimes it's so hot. Like I'm a kid, like I'm 6, 7 years old. Like I'll even take my t-shirt off. Like I'm sweating, and like it's hot afternoon, and my parents are taking a nap or something, and I'm sitting there like on the floor eating mangoes, and like Pakistan has like really, really good mangoes. Like they're literally world class. I don't know, for some reason my mind goes back to it. Like it was such a happy time. Like all you wanted to do was like, find a room where the air conditioning is a little better and you're just a kid and, you're playing around, eating mangoes. And, it's a happy place.
Oh, that's great. My son has been asking me to try a mango, and I live in like rural France. We don't have mangoes here, so I guess we'll have to travel to Pakistan. Let me also ask you about balance and how you unplug, or, as we put it in Web3 and crypto Twitter, how do you touch grass?
I think it's very hard, right? So, and you have to learn it, otherwise you burn out and you can't perform. Like for example, because of the 24-hour nature of this, like I remember in 2019 or something, I think when we were doing the SEC qualified offering, like we have a very strong market in Asia, Korea, and some other places. And what would happen is I would literally wake up middle of the night and I'd be like answering people on Telegram in Asian time zone, right? And I started noticing that, it was impacting my sleep so much that my productivity was actually going down, right? So it took me a while to be able to say, okay, I'm not gonna be online while sleeping. It sounds crazy, but like, yeah, I used to do that. And then now I'm at a level where, and you need to build support structures around you as well, right? Like you need to have very strong leaders around you, people who are really good at the job and you really trust them. It might sound crazy, but being able to go to sleep by putting my phone on Do Not Disturb is a luxury. But I'm able to get to that place where, I'm like, okay, if my phone is offline for 6-7 hours, of course, there are ways for people to call me in an emergency, and I've set up those structures. But it feels like a luxury to a crypto or Bitcoin founder because of how fast these markets move, and but I'm able to do that now. Right? Like I do good sleep, and when it's on Do Not Disturb, and I try to get, I'm like a sleep. I monitor my sleep and I try to optimize it in various ways. I wear the Oura ring. I check at what time I had dinner and what's impacting my sleep, stress levels. So you improve what you measure, right? So it might sound like a simple thing, but if you're not resting, if you're not able to restore yourself on a consistent basis, you might think you're being very productive and you're only sleeping 4 hours and you're killing yourself. But over a long enough timeline, you won't be able to sustain it, right? And I think these things we've noticed, they take time to build, and then once they start working, like people also underestimate how big these things can actually become. Right? Like when things start working, they're almost like, this is a different topic, but there are two things people get wrong in startups, right? Like they almost like overestimate that the probability of building something, right? Like, oh, I have an idea, this. No, very few things actually end up working. But then they underestimate that when something is working, how big can it become? Like if you look at like Airbnb or even things like DoorDash, like it's just food delivery. It's a 100 billion company now, right? Like, so they underestimate how big can these things become when they actually start working. And I think connecting it back to SIP31 and the place where Stacks is right now, I feel like all the check marks are there now. Like things are working, it's coming together, and now it can really grow from there if you do the right things.
Yeah. What about any workout or meditation routines?
Yeah, so I think in a perfect day, I'm able to start my day with meditating. Journaling actually helps a lot, and it was a insight that I had, which is journaling is actually might be a way for talking to your own brain in a different format, right? Like you have thoughts and you're going through it. The minute you write everything down, your brain actually calms down a little bit because it's like an outlet. But B, when you come back and read your own writing, like it's actually a better form of communication to yourself, right? You have a better understanding of whatever that was. And I don't know if it's visual or it's like different medium is concerned. Like think of it this way, like a lot of people in business say that if you're doing a business deal, go meet someone in person, right? Because it just different senses activate, and people are able to like trust you more. And if you're a good person, right? Like if you're a shady character, like you should try to do everything or a phone call. But I think it's similar. Like changing the medium actually can really help your brain in terms of processing thoughts.
Wow. What about any favorite books that have had the most lasting impact on you?
I think Snow Crash comes to mind. So Snow Crash was again very early in time. Called it in a way that there would be a digital currency. There would be like these metaverses, and people would be living in it, and so on. Like I think that was a big one. When I was a kid, like I read The Godfather, and there are different lessons there. Like I know it's like a crime mafia character and so on, but some lessons around family, and how family is like number one, and taking care of people around you, and how those bonds form. I think there's some very interesting nuggets in there.
Wow, nice. And I'm also curious how you use AI now, or what are your favorite tools and how do you use them?
I think AI is one of those things where I know that eventually, just from an intellectual curiosity level, I'm gonna get into it more, because I am an engineer at heart, and this is one of the largest breakthroughs that have happened in recent times, and I just want to understand it, like not just use it. I want to understand like what's happening in the LLMs, and how are they designed, how they're working. Like I'm just very curious about it. I've started using some tools here and there, but mostly my angle right now is productivity. Right, like my life is consumed by Stacks right now, and I'm looking at it as, can it be a tool to make me more productive in various things? Like for example, sometimes it might sound weird, but sometimes my bottleneck is actually how fast can I type or interact with people, right? So and then it's like, okay, what about I do voice notes? And they're getting pretty good at like getting most of the voice rate. And then even small things like, oh, can you reformat this piece of data in this way and present it? And I think it's actually getting good enough that sometimes that's faster than giving it to a colleague and explaining to them, hey, do this, because the AI can reply like this, like, here you go, here's what you asked for. Right? So I think right now I would say mostly productivity games or hacks is what.
Yeah. Well, I know we're just about at time, and I was wondering if you could share maybe a couple interests of yours outside of Bitcoin and Stacks.
It's a hard question for me. Like sometimes people are like, come on, like you can't say that your interests are walking in nature and meditating and and journaling. But the way I think about this is because I've been working hard for so long, if I get a break, those are the things I would go and do, right? So reading is another one. Like I'm craving having the ability to like read a lot. It's very hard to even put in like 30 minutes or an hour of dedicated reading time. And those are the things that I kind of crave. And so I wouldn't say like these are my interests, or if you leave me for 3 months, I'll just keep walking around in nature. But if you leave me for a week, like I would absolutely spend a lot of time by myself, like just like unwinding and finding my peace.
Yeah, well, everything they complement each other, it sounds like. Well, I know we're at time. Is there anything else you'd like to share, personal anecdotes or stories?
I think I would just say that our ecosystem has come a long way from where it started, and I think there's so much reason to be excited right now. But sometimes you need to just recalibrate and tell everybody about the North Star, like where we're going. and what the world is going to look like, and what our contribution and impact is going to be. And I think if like Bitcoin and AI are probably sort of like the two biggest delta shifts that is just going to absolutely change how the world works and how much people are empowered and their lives can be improved. And I think not only that we are making an impact on one of them, I do think there will be a world where AI ends up using a lot of Bitcoin, right? And I think if it happens, and if Stacks is the default, Rails for Bitcoin and for programmable Bitcoin, I think at some point like we can merge these as well, and I think that's super interesting.
Yeah. Well, Munib, thanks so much for joining us and offering us some more insights into, Munib beyond Bitcoin and Stacks.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for joining us and for tuning in. This is our final episode, so I want to take a moment to share a few highlights and express my gratitude to the people at Leather and Trust Machines who enabled me to launch and grow the Leather Lounge into a weekly show, one that's sparked inspiring and insightful conversations with leaders and founders, builders, and artists who are innovating in the Bitcoin ecosystem. I discovered Stacks in 2021, and I always considered myself somewhat of a Bitcoin maximalist with no real interest in other blockchains. And the fact that Stacks was designed to scale and bring smart contract functionality to Bitcoin really resonated with me. It was also during that time that I experienced somewhat of a renaissance as an artist, and I became inspired to release photography and music as NFTs on Stacks. I dove into the communities and offered to contribute music to projects, including Megapont, Project Indigo, Satoshables, and Nonish. I collaborated with artists including Arno from Earth, Alexander, 3Hana, and Boozy, and became a proud Gamma partner artist. Through Stacks, I made meaningful friendships with people from all over the world, from diverse backgrounds. And after 17 years of a rewarding career in music education, I left the classroom and I moved with my family to France. It was a time of really big uncertainty, and I decided to turn my passion for Bitcoin and Stacks into more than just a hobby, and to find work in the ecosystem. And I will be forever grateful to the founders and community members from Stacks who took the time to speak with me, offer advice, and open doors. I kept showing up, building trust, building reputation. I presented at Bitcoin Unleashed in London. I met more people face to face, and one connection led to another. Eventually, I was invited to consult with Leather to create educational content, including the Learn with Leather series. And you can still find that on our YouTube. And then Annie and I launched the Leather Lounge on May 1st, 2024, as an audio-only Twitter Spaces. And then in January, we pivoted to include video interviews, which was a heavier lift in terms of planning, editing, and publishing, but it really took the show to the next level. And I think that helped me secure more high-profile guests. Not only did I grow through every step and every iteration, I learned a tremendous amount from some of the most prominent builders and artists and thought leaders in the space. I got to explore DeFi with Jakob, Diego, Andre, Lior, Gnome, and Tycho from the Stacks ecosystem, digital matter theory with Ian Banksia and Jackman Switch from Rue and Space Invaders. We dedicated several episodes to ordinals and art on Bitcoin with Stephen Miller, Postwook, Aeons, the whole team at Gamma, including Brett, Nick, Sarah, and Jack. And some of my personal favorite conversations were those at the edges of Bitcoin, at the intersections with philosophy with Troy Cross, politics with Jason Meyer, author of Progressive's Case for Bitcoin, breathwork, energy, and Bitcoin mining with Daniel Batten, artificial intelligence, as mentioned earlier, with Publius and WoBuddy, and even astrology with Aaron Redwing. It's pretty wild to think about how much has changed since the show began. The Nakamoto upgrade and SBTC hadn't even launched yet. The US regulatory climate was especially hostile to Bitcoin at the time, and BTC was still trading under 60K. These curated conversations that I was able to have really demanded a high standard, and I put a tremendous amount of effort into preparing and publishing each one. The Leather Lounge enabled me to turn my vision and passion for cultivating insightful conversations into a reality. And the highlight of every week was usually immediately after the show was done, while in contrast, the hardest part of my week came the next day when I'd have to edit the show and critique my own performance under the microscope. In my most self-critical moments, I often reminded myself, if at least one person finds this episode or conversation valuable, then it's worth it. But hearing from so many of you who found these episodes meaningful and worth your time reaffirmed that the lounge wasn't just a self-indulgent series of conversations, and that it made a real contribution to the growth and enrichment of the Bitcoin and Stacks ecosystems. I hope it also served as inspiration to others and as proof that consistency, integrity, and iteration are powerful tools for building meaningful work and accomplishing your goals. So what's next? I am still designing music education curriculum and continuing to consult with the Stacks Foundation. I'll continue seeking opportunities to shine a spotlight on visionaries, creators, and artists whose work deserves to be seen, heard, and celebrated. I also hope to return to releasing more art and music, especially in collaboration with my wife. And I'll be focusing more on helping my family thrive here in the French countryside. I'll have some exciting updates on that front in the coming months. So one more big thank you to Trust Machines and Leather Wallet for their support. And as always, thank you all for listening and watching. Thanks again for joining us in the Leather Lounge. We record each episode live, and if you'd like to listen in or join us on stage, make sure to give us a follow on X at LeatherBTC. Leather is your gateway to everything Bitcoin, from DeFi to stacks, ordinals, runes, stamps, NFTs, and more. You can find loads of helpful crypto content on our YouTube channel and visit our blog and learn center at leather.io.